Wow, we just got here. Thanks for showing up. We just, I'm assuming you're hearing me. Yeah. Um, yeah, just as we're leaving the house, it started to pour. Not exactly like it did the night that our house got flooded, but it was working at it. It really wasn't supposed to happen. And I'm watching radar and I'm watching the Zoom Earth. And so we kind of waited for it to pass a bit before we left home. Uh, once you've had it, I love U-boats, but once having one for a home is not something I recommend. Um, and then it was kind of flooding on the way here and stuff, and we were in the electric car. And I know that worries some people. Electric cars work in the rain. Actually, they work better in the rain than gas cars. That's absolutely the truth. There's some proof of it on YouTube too. Tesla going through water up to the side of its doors and going right through it without and then up to higher water without even a bother. And all the gas cars and the Jeeps and stuff that tried to do it, they all drowned out. So in that case, the electric car is pretty good. Um, so yeah, tonight's show, it should be a good one. I think I was very pleased with it. I'm very hard on myself, and I'm very picky about what I'm doing, and I'm already thinking about what next week's show is going to be. Again, hi Shelby. Again, hi Catkins. Um, Jamie, hello. Anne, hello. God, oh count. Um, yeah. So again, we don't have anybody to come in front of the camera and tell their story. We've been looking for people. We've been searching. We've been looking at some videos that are out there of people that haven't got much exposure. And we've kind of coming up empty-handed lately. We do have someone coming out here, not next week, I think the week after, with Yvonne Smith from the East Coast, and she does want to go on camera and tell her story. And she's a brand new person and a brand new uh, client of Yvonne's, so which is really cool. So that'll be a nice, refreshing, and you know, new story. In the meantime, it's me, and so there I have several options, and one of them is uh, I think Brett brought it up to me. He's one of our people here. Hello from Lancashire. Cash. Typical Yank. Can't pronounce it. I do say Buckingham though. Um. Anyway, Lancashire. Thanks. Lancashire. I know. Well, that's one way of pronouncing it. I was married to someone who was British for 33 years, so I know when I'm not saying things correctly, which is almost all the time. So Brett brought up the fact that he realized that I was the person who wrote and produced the movie called The Day Time Ended. Now we've talked about this a little bit before. It's on YouTube, and I don't recommend you watch it with Mystery Science Theater. Avoid that one because it's not a bad movie. It really isn't. I mean, they took my script and they radically, messed it up, and that's what happens to you when you're 24 years old and you're getting to make your first feature film with big actors and all that stuff. They just drove over me. They loved the script and then they'd had their way with it. I have the original script. It's called Vortex, and I'm taking a look at it. But the real point here is that when I was writing the script, I had a friend, a writing partner, and you can see his name in the credits, Wayne Schmidt. And he would come over to my house in North Hollywood, and um, we would write together. Because basically it was my story concept about a man building a house. He was an architect. He's retiring. He built a house out in the desert, and it was on a vortex which made him shift into different parallels. Something that wasn't being talked a lot back then about that. And it has aliens in it and all kinds of cool stuff. And so I wrote 2 pages about the story. I took it to the producer that I had worked for before. He looked at it and he said, you're on payroll. Go home, write a script. So I got together with my friend Wayne. We wrote the script together. It was a great script, I thought. And we went into the production. But while we were writing the script one night, yes, here it comes. I'm sitting here talking to him, and we're listening. I think we were listening to Tangerine Dream. I mean, we always played kind of moody music and stuff. We We like synthesizer music and stuff. And so to put us in the mood, we're writing, kicking back and forth ideas. And I look over him and he's slumped over. I said, what? The guy fell asleep on me. And so I said, hey, Wayne, wake up. He didn't respond. I said, Wayne. And now I'm getting a little worried. I mean, maybe he just died or something. So I went over and shook him and nothing happened. He was breathing. I couldn't wake him up. And at that point, I just felt this compulsion to go outside, that there was something I had to see. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to give away the whole thing, but something happened that night. And this was before I was aware that these things were actually happening to me. And I remember it consciously. And then I had a very vivid dream about it. Is whatever was suppressed, I think, came out in my subconscious. And that would be an interesting one to do. I've been doing so much CGI as I did for this one tonight. 28 shots in 3 days was I'm exhausted from it. Enjoyed it, but I'm very tiring. I'm thinking about, I've already started doing some illustrations about the next one because there's another case that happened with me that was really dramatic too. And I thought, I haven't been doing a lot of drawing and painting lately, but if I do some illustrations on black paper, which is my style, you see it always in my art, I can kind of bring those to life. And I can actually use AI to give some animation to them, but it's still my work. In that case, AI is kind of cool because it will make the eyes glisten a bit more and make the arms move and things, but it's still very much your style, very much your art. So I'm playing around with that concept and mixing my art with a little bit of AI and a little bit of CG, and because I want to keep changing it up. I don't want you guys to get bored. I don't want to get bored either. So water bong, what's that? I don't think Travis was very happy with Fire in the Sky. Well, that's an interesting thing. Of course, I told the story about Tracy Torme and I getting in it about that and having an argument, but basically they told Tracy if they portray what actually happened when he was abducted and had the grays, which with the black eyes, we don't have a picture. Well, they didn't have black eyes, that the idiot producers, and I don't care if you're listening, all you care about is money. So they wanted to have scary monsters in there. And I'll never forget, I had two friends that worked on it. And of course, they're not really into this stuff. They're monster makers, and we're all monster makers. And some of us are into UFOs and actual abduction cases and things. And the rest of them think, well, I don't know what to think about it, or it's just all a bunch of bull. I don't care. They want us to make monsters. We're making monsters. We don't care that it's a real story. So they're talking to me and saying, oh, you like this stuff, Steve? Hey, we just worked on this movie called Fire in the Sky. And I went, what? And I remember they showed me some pictures of the aliens, and I was just horrified. And they said, you don't like it? I said, no. Those things are awful. Well, they were insulted because I was insulting their work. Too bad. I told him, you need to go look at the book he wrote. Well, we just do what they tell us to do. Well, yeah, I get that because I've been there. But I think in that case, if that had been me, that I was working in another film at the time, but if I had been asked to work on that and I saw what they were doing with Travis's story, I would have flat out refused to do it. I don't care if I went home hungry, because I'm not nuts when it comes to that kind of thing. I really believe in integrity, and I really believe in sticking to the story, and I don't believe in selling people out just so you can have a good box office. And then I get told by people all the time, I love that movie. You didn't love it? No. Did you ever read the book? What book? Go see Travis's book. So I've been rather vocal about it off and on, and I think that's probably why Travis is not returning my emails, because I've been trying to get him on the show, but he won't even answer my email. So now evidently they're going to be doing another film about it, and this time they're going to do it right. We'll see. You really should go to yes, of course, Mike Smithson and Mark Siegel, I believe, too. Both good friends. But, they asked me what I thought. I didn't like it. And they're both great artists. With that film, if it's going to be done right, it has to be done by an independent artist, by a real filmmaker, not a movie maker, not a guy that pumps out tin cans that people burrow into the theater to see because it's got lots of flashy aliens and all kinds of action and stuff and no substance, because that's what sells, in my opinion. He needs to go to someone like, let's see, well, Stanley Kubrick's no longer with us. He would have been great. Spielberg would do a good job. Um, Hitchcock. Uh, Peter Weir. Peter Weir would do a great job with that story, and as he did with Picnic at Hanging Rock and The Last Wave. So, of course, Picnic at Hanging Rock was a real case. Um, and what about Communion? I know a lot of you like that film, and I'm assuming you read the book, so you saw the big difference between the two. Long story, I was supposed to work on that film, and Ridley was very upset when he found out that I had been brought in there and talked to, and then not given the work, because he wanted someone who actually had the experiences to do the work rather than someone who didn't. But that didn't work out. And then, yeah, they just didn't do a good job with that film. They really didn't, and it's got some stuff going on. I mean, Christopher Walken, he was okay. I love Christopher Walken. Don't get me wrong. One of my first movies I ever worked on was with him and Margot Kidder, and he was a real jerk until I told him that he was an asshole for treating me the way he was, and then he laughed and he said, "I like you." And we got along fabulously after that. So he's one of those guys you love to hate, but he's a very good artist and a very good actor, and I have reams of respect for him. If you've ever seen Biloxi Blues, I think that's one of his finest performances ever. But Communion it could have been so much better, and I think it needed to be in better hands. And I'm sure that Whitley agrees with me. But whenever I talk about people like Travis or Whitley or other people that have had stories made into films, um, they're never that happy with me for not liking the outcome in the film. So I'm just honest. I mean, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you. If you don't ask me, I'm not going to volunteer it, because my mother said, "You're not saying anything good to say about something. Don't say anything at all." And I tend not to. I don't volunteer it. Somebody might put something on the internet and I'll think, geez, but I don't go there. I just don't do it. And it happens to me plenty. People tell me, "Oh God, you like that? That was horrible. That was stupid. Why did you like that?" I don't do that. So anyway, yeah. Oh, Dream Motion. You probably liked it up to now when I started putting down movies you like. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do. Someone who actually has the experiences and has been through this and is continuing to go through it is really, um, I think, are the best, most qualified people to treat the subject in a way that it deserves, with respect, and also being open-minded, and not just because someone tells you a story even more far-fetched than being picked up by aliens with black eyes and taken up and having probes put in you and all that stuff. There are things that are much more extreme than that and further out on a limb. And we do not turn our minds off to that person. We listen very carefully. We don't judge. And if they'll go in front of the camera, we'll let them do it. And um, because we don't know what we don't know. And there are people out there that have had experiences that are different than ours, because I think this place has been visited by so many different uh, beings. I mean, the universe is so big and so old, and there's so many different planets out there. There's just got to be all kinds of people aware of us, as we're starting to be aware of them with our telescopes. And we haven't even figured out how to get out of the solar system yet, at least not with people that I know of. Because for all I know, we do have a secret space program and we have left the solar system, but they won't share that with us. That's strictly elitist stuff. We're not worthy. And they think they're so powerful. Anyway, I'm ranting. I'm sorry. This channel rocks, man. Love it. Well, thank you, Count, as always. Helicopters. I haven't had any helicopter problems in a while. I'm just looking. We do the same thing if heading forward. Yeah, well, sure. And you know, okay, if you take the Charles Hickson case, and by the way, we're going to have Philip Mano on the show very soon, who was responsible for that episode turning out as well as it did. I think you will enjoy talking to him. Um, but that chase was really different from your standard gray alien or lizard people chase, and you know, and there's plenty of them. I watched another one last night on, is it Creepy Tales? It wasn't bedtime stories, but it's creepy tales. There are so many cases out there, you can't possibly be up on all of them. It's just not possible. And 90% of them, the people are so credible and from just average walks of life, meaning that they're not into science that much or science fiction or astronomy and things, and they just have these things happen to them. And some of them, the beings that they describe, like in this one case, they were like sacks, black sacks. um, there were the other ones that didn't look anything like grays, and they didn't look like anything like reptilians or praying mantises. And if you go through the data that's out there, you'll find over and over and over and over and over again that there's, you know, similar craft, because obviously they figured it out there, that there's a good way to travel from one star to another or from one dimension to another, and it has a lot to do with high voltage and anti-gravity, and most of them are using the same thing, the way we use the same thing on this planet to drive around. We use cars, and they look different from each other, and depending what country they're from, they look radically different again. And so, you know, really, Earth's sort of a microcosm of what's out there, and then just add a few thousand or a few hundred or a few thousand or a few 100,000 or a few million or a few billion years to that civilization's um, lifespan and the technological curve, and you would have a mixture of different encounters if they're visiting this planet on all different levels, ones where they don't even need a spacecraft to get here, they're that advanced. So, and I think they're all aware of each other as well. So we're kind of a fascination, because everybody had to start somewhere, and we're kind of right there, right on the edge of having Star Trek and going into space and traveling to other worlds. And I would think that other civilizations that have long since passed that would find it interesting to go back in time and see that actually uh, happening. It's an amazing event in history, us surviving, killing each other, blowing the planet up, and then getting into space. And I think Roddenberry did a good job of seeing how we might do that. So, but I'm biased because I love Gene and I love working with him. So, oh, I see you got a question. Malcolmus. Um, I mean, stuff you didn't need hypnosis for. Not as many as I'd like, but I have been a few times. Um, there's one that, you know, the problem with it is that, you know, you have a fully conscious experience, right? And it's broad daylight. Like I did this one time. There was a noise on my roof, and I went outside in the alley. It's broad daylight, and up on top of the roof is this guy working on my roof. And I thought, that's odd, because we don't have anybody here working on the roof today. And he was scraping at the side of the trim on the roof, and he had he kind of had a face like Burt Reynolds, but he had very pocked skin, like he had very bad acne at one time, acne, and he kind of was disheveled, and he had a gray shirt on. It had holes in it, like moths have eaten through it. And then I noticed that his feet were kind of up in the air, and hey, he's not even sitting on a ladder. He's just sitting there floating. And he said, "Oh no, I'm working on your roof." And I remember saying to this person, "Hey, wait a minute, you're an alien." And in that breath, he came down from the roof, stood in front of me, and morphed into a visitor, which smiled at me. And I could have sworn I saw teeth. I don't know if anyone else has ever seen teeth, but I could have sworn I saw something white. Um, and it just looked at me and gave me this grin, and it started to spin and spun into a dust devil. Literally, it became a dust devil and moved away from me and went through the gate on the side of the house and out into the street. I ran over the gate and looked over, and I saw it disappear in the street. And it was amazing. And I ran back into my studio, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up on the couch in broad daylight, which I didn't do. I was working. So was that a dream? Or was that conscious? Or is that how they handled it? I remember it being conscious up to the point where I woke up. So it begs the question. I mean, they wanted me to think it was a dream. You know, they did. I should reenact that one. I think I might. So bizarre, yeah. Wild, yeah. But I never forgot it. And again, there's that thing that Judy talked about. She talked about, I can live to be 100, and I will always remember that in the detail I just expressed to you about it. You know, that all that time will go by. It's been, that was, how old was I then? I was, I don't know, I was just 40 or 40, right in there, because it was around 92, right in there. So 92, I would have been 40 years old. Yeah. And I just remember it like yesterday. It's perfectly clear. The things that you're going to see tonight in tonight's episode, even though the notes were lost, I had tapes, Bond recorded all my sessions, they were lost. I could still remember every single bit of it. I still can. And I can go back to it and tell the story again and again and again, and it never changes. So some of those, again, it was at that same house and I was wide awake. But then I come to, and I'm on, I had this little couch in my workshop. It was a really nice workshop studio. So have a very religious friend who is having dreams about aliens, and this guy is not into this at all. He jumped out of bed and there was a huge UFO above the house. Yeah, well, I tell you, my friend Sean, who was working for me at that same studio, it was this big studio attached to the house up in Granada Hills. He came over to pick up his check, and so his girlfriend stayed in the car while he came in, and all of a sudden she came in, and she was white as a sheet, and she had just seen, sitting in the car, this huge, big black circle of a UFO appear over the house and hover there for a bit, and then it faded out, and she just couldn't believe her eyes because she never knew what to think about us sharing in this experience. And Sean was going to Avon too at the time. I had a few experiences with Sean. In fact, he called me up one time, and I was living in Granada Hills, and he's in Camarillo, and he says, "Can you get over here?" And I said, "Yeah, why? What's going on?" And he says, "There's something you need to see." So I drove out there. Oh, he said, "Bring your camera." See, drive out there. And I still have this picture. I wish I had it here right now, but I will share it with you at another time. He had me come into his room, and he had a lamp near his bed. And the lamp was very dusty, but it had a handprint on it. And it was a Mickey Mouse hand. It had 3 fingers and a thumb. It was tiny, and he doesn't have kids. And it wasn't faked. And I took a picture of it, and I will share it with you. Sean had very vivid, consciously remembered experiences, and he also was working at Vaughn. We became friends. He was a great artist, and we both were artists, and so we had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, so I can say that the one in the kitchen, I went back to bed after that one, and when I woke up to woke up, go into the kitchen, and I saw the butcher block, and I looked face to face at it, and that was truly a conscious experience. I've also had moments where I've been sitting in the house and I see something go by in the hallway, and then it comes back again and peers around the edge, and it's shadowy and it's gray like shaped, and I've seen that fully conscious many, many times. I've seen the craft conscious a lot, and I've had witnesses with me at the time. And then I've had witnesses with me at the time who saw even more, and then they don't remember to this day. They just don't remember it anymore. Very few of them do. Am I missing anything? Because I've been telling stories and really out of the way last night. What is sense? Oh, Jill. Yeah, well, I mean, I was laying in bed the other night, and Nova always curls up at my feet, and she's a good sized dog. She's a black dog. Um, Mary was asleep already, and then I heard the dog door in the kitchen go flap, flap, and she heard it too because she jerked up and looked like that. And we both sat there looking at it. Do you think I got up to go see what it was? No, we just both went back to sleep. But you know, and sometimes I'll see lights in the house, and I'll see a light flash in the kitchen. We were watching television once, Mary and I, and this blue light flash from the kitchen and on the wall, and you know, lots of that stuff happens. I also continually hear this sound, and I've heard it since I started seeing Yvonne right around 1990. And I woke up one night hearing it and trying to locate it in the house and realized no matter where I went, I heard it. And even at, 5,000 feet up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, I could hear it. So where there aren't drain pipes, it's been said that the hum is coming from that, but it's not really a hum. And it's sort of a, but it changes. And I can hear it right now if I go silent, and it'll change and become different sounds, but kind of in the same vein and have a different rhythm to it one morning than another. And Nova's being silly. I don't know if any of you hear that sound, but I've heard it. It doesn't matter where I go, and only a few people that I know could hear it with me. So it seems to be something that not everyone can sense. I do think it has something to do with our experience or with our abilities, because I know one thing, and I was talking to Mary about this today, is that my the first time that someone blew a dog whistle and I could hear it, my mom took notice to that, and then another time I was in a restaurant, and the people sitting like a couple of tables away, I could hear everything they were saying, and I was very young and I didn't know better, and I was saying, these people are talking. I don't remember what exactly it was they were talking about, but I emulated it to my mom, and she kind of looked at me and said, "You can hear them?" I said, "Yes," and she said, "Okay, I got to tell you something." And she told me that my sense of hearing runs in the family, and you have to be selective and not listen to people and eavesdrop and cut it out, but it can come in handy at times, especially when you have employees working for you and they're talking nasty things behind your back. Um, it's kind of That's when it came in handy. And I walked up to them and repeated back to them everything they said, and they had no idea I could hear that well. I still have good hearing like that. Also, smell and sensitivity to vibration and low frequencies. How about you guys? I have good night vision too. Mainly ticking. I get a similar like that too. Same here. I told my husband back to sleep. You guys are going so fast, I can't keep up with it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard music too. Cat repellers drive me crazy. Hmm. Well, they used to have those silent alarms in department stores, like in the malls and stuff, and they leave them on during the daytime because you're not supposed to be able to hear them. And I had a friend in high school that could hear him too, and they drove us both nuts. It would give us headaches, and so he walked over more than once and talked to the management and said, "You still have your alarms on?" And he looked at him like, "How do you know that?" And he said, "I can hear him." He says, "You can't hear them." I said, "No, we both can hear them, and they're painful, and I bet other people can hear them too." And he says, "Well, I can't do anything about it, And but they don't use those anymore, and if they do, they've improved them. sonic booms. Huh. So you do. You do have highly sensitive hearing. Yeah. Let's see, Guy. Have ever heard this? Well, I hear alarms that my husband can't. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you guys do have sensitive hearing, and these are things I really haven't looked into as long as I've been involved with this. Um, and it's fun to find out. It's interesting to find out. It's informative to find out. It gets added to the database. And well, like what present stands something calling your name. They're good at that. Um, you'll be lying there, and I've heard Mary, and Mary's heard it too. Um, but I don't hear him call my name. But I've actually one time I was laying in bed and I was trying to, I was I had just had a very metaphysical night with my friend, and we had been up late and listening to music and meditating and stuff. And so I'm thinking about the universe and trying to solve its mysteries. And I'm laying there in bed, and I think I come up with, I can't remember what it is now, but I came up with something that seemed right to me. Hi, Catherine. Um, and it seemed so right to me. And all of a sudden, like a megaphone in the middle of my head, I heard, "That is absolutely correct." And it literally shocked me out of my bed. I sat up and what the hell, where the hell did that come from? I never forgot it. And then there's another thing that some of us hear, an explosion inside of our heads. Now, I remember Catherine McLeod asking me a long time ago in the house where she lived. And uh, she said to me, "Steve, can you hear the sound of your brain?" And at that moment, I was like, I thought maybe that was something was wrong with me, or I had something wrong with my hearing or something like that. But I can hear the sound of my brain. If it's silent, you can hear it. I can hear it right now. And I don't know how many people can do that, but I know Catherine McLeod could. And that was very helpful. And I thank you for that. Flyback transformers. In fact, it was you, Catherine, that could hear those darn silent alarms. They were horrible. I hated those things. It was like being deep in the water and having pressure on your brain. It just like a clamp. Oh boy. Yeah, your printer has a beeping noise that no one else can hear. Hmm. Well, I'm just looking through the comments. Do you think the visitors are dimensional? I think Rusty, I think it's all of the above. Um, because honestly, um, we know there's other dimensions. We know there's parallel realities. Um, we know the universe is really old, probably much older than we believe. I think it's what 13.5 billion years old. I think it's much older than that, according to Webb. But it's been a lot of time for intelligence to evolve to such levels we can't even imagine, and so all things are possible. And so a dimensional being would be, we're dimensional beings because we're from a dimension. So if we were to penetrate another dimension, we would be interdimensional beings ourselves. But then you take the movie 2001, and I thank Catherine McLeod to this day for telling me about that movie, because 2001: A Space Odyssey changed my life. Kubrick changed my life, and I was so lucky to spend time with Gary Lockwood and other great people who worked on the film and become friends with them. And it just what an amazing thing. But that film, boy, it was all about this. And Kubrick wanted to show the aliens, but they did a number of different tests. He did things with Slit Scan, and Douglas Trumbull did, and they came up with some pretty interesting stuff, but he felt that none of it really worked because this intelligence was so far advanced, it really wasn't even physical anymore. And it was playing God with our solar system and us. And 2010 goes into more of that, although I didn't feel it was as good as a movie as 2001, but it was kind of its own movie, and I still liked it. I mean, I like I like serious, hard science fiction. I'm much more of a 2001 fan um, than a Star Wars fan. You know, I just like the what if stuff. You know, Andromeda Strain, and even Day the Earth Stood Still. I mean, that was a really good. Um, it's just a really good film because it was realistic. I almost got the feeling that we were being tested by that film. I don't know if it's true or not. There are a lot of people that said that. I don't know for sure. But to have a craft come down like that, and a human, very human, as human as us type person, although, you know, he was an amazing actor and he was really quite different from any other human I've ever known, which is why he was cast. Um, it was a good film, and it still holds up. I mean, if you consider that that was a timepiece in the 1950s, it holds up perfectly well. Um, and the message is amazing. Ike, you are so welcome. Your specialty is spacecraft engineering. Huh. Wow. Well, you're one of my heroes then, because I deeply admire people in aerospace working on our spacecraft and getting us out there. Um, being a aviator myself, and surrounding myself as I do with the aviation community where I live, I'm a member of the Experimental Aircraft Association and FAA and all that stuff, and amazing people working very hard to get us into space and exploring, because really, you know, we're never going to fix our problems on Earth first. But if we get out there, we just might. So, because we'll see that what we've been doing down here was just not the right priority, blowing each other up. You had a surgeon. Oh boy, these are going quickly. It's hard for me to read it. Love the Day There Stood Still. Original. Yeah, exactly. The original. And thank you, Aurora, for underlining that. I made the mistake of watching the remake, and I wanted to find the AB rolls and set fire to them because, you know, it was, it was a terrible, terrible, terrible movie. It really was. I wonder what Keanu Reeves thought of it, because he's a really good guy. You know, anyway, that's a film you don't see rerun or available anywhere that I've seen, and I'm glad, because we really need to admire the first one. And I was so fortunate. Not only did I get to work with Gene Roddenberry, but Robert Wise. And I remember I had been doing Leonard Nimoy's years. I was working on him, and Fred Phillips comes in, the great makeup artist Fred Phillips from The Outer Limits and from Star Trek, the original series. He comes in and says, "Steve, Gene and Robert want to meet with you." I said, "They do?" He said, "Yeah. And they got some aliens they want for the bridge, and they want to talk to you about it." And I was, you know, I was a young guy, and I was in awe. I mean, they're two gods, you know. And I remember going in there and being nervous. And here's Robert Wise sitting at his desk, and he had this big, huge desk at Paramount. And Gene was standing behind him, kind of bent over. And Gene, I knew, and he says, "Come on in, Steve. You know, just sit down, relax." You know, and it's like, it was amazing. So Robert was very nice, and we sat there and we discussed some designs. And one of them was based on a movie called This Island Earth. I said, "What about that kind of look for one of the aliens on the bridge?" And of course, they both knew what I was talking about. And that's when you saw that. Bridge alien that had the big domed head and the receding hairline and the eyes. and Vino put on the makeup, and I was the one that did all the prosthetics for it. So getting to work with Robert Wise was amazing, and I did get his autograph on a copy of The Day the Earth Stood Still, the laser disc that had included the script with it and all this other stuff, and I still have that, and I cherish it to this day. Um, his movies were wonderful. He didn't just do science fiction; he did a lot of other films, but Andromeda Strain was another one of his, and wow, what an incredible movie! Just amazing. In fact, I went with Catherine McLeod to see that, as I recall. We saw a lot of films together. So a lot of good movies. I don't think she caught Westworld with me. I think I watched that one alone, which is a funky film, but I still like it. Oh wow, Aurora. Very good. Yeah, I have that stuff too. Some of it survived the flood because it was here. Hello, Casey. I'm old enough to have seen Star Trek, the first run in the middle school. Your props. Where did it go? Your work was awesome. Well, it wasn't. I didn't work on the original series. I worked on the first Star Trek movie. I worked on the last one, and I worked on the pilot episode of Next Generation. Somebody's scratching to get in, so that was my involvement with that. But thank you. Yeah, I like Star Trek because again, un, it wasn't like it's not like Star Trek. They're Star Wars. They're two different shows altogether. And what I liked about Star Trek, which attracted me more in Star Wars, is it was about us, and we overcame our differences. We learned that there are no races. There's no Latino race. There's no Asian race. There's no we're all one people. We're all human. We're all Homo sapiens. We have different color skin and different color culture, different cultures, and we have different languages, but we're all humans. We're all Homo sapiens, just like all great apes, orangutans, chimpanzees, and gorillas are all gorillas. But we have lowland gorillas, and we've got the mountain gorillas, and so on and so forth. So I like that he had that vision, and that you know we learned from our warring among each other that it was a better pursuit to go out together and explore. And that's why I liked it so much and still do. And actually talked to Roddenberry about it. And, here's a guy that flew multiple missions as a pilot with his navigator and best friend, Matt Jeffries, over Germany again and again and again. And if you guys watch Masters of the Sky, Spielberg and Tom Hanks' latest effort among the Band of Brothers series, it was about the B-17 pilots. And if you watch that show, you'll realize what those guys went through and what the odds were against Gene and Matt even coming home ever, let alone both of them. Because without Matt Jeffries, there never would have been the Enterprise we know today, because he designed it. And Gene was very tired of war, and he wanted something better for us. So he gave us Star Trek. Yeah, well, obviously those flip phones were motivated by that, or influenced by that. And in fact, I have a Star Trek communicator that actually is dead accurate, 100% accurate, and to the real prop, and it actually connects to my cell phone, and I love the darn thing. I see we're about 10 minutes away from the show. Steve, were you shot down in World War II and killed? Well, Catherine, that's a very interesting question. Yeah, I have deep feelings about being involved in World War II and a huge familiarity with everything from that era, from the music. I knew the music when I was a kid, and I never heard it before. The first time I heard it, I could immediately hum the tunes, and so there's something there. But if I believe my own sense, I did make it home, but coming home is what killed me. It killed a lot of people that were in World War II, because when they came home from the war, they were very lost, and their families and the world didn't really understand them, and some of them didn't do well with it. And I have a feeling that might have been what happened to me, but I can't be sure. So it's what is it? 12 minutes till the show comes on. I want to visit the bathroom and because I got right here and got right on the phone. I right on the show. Um, I really enjoyed speaking with all of you tonight. It's always appreciated. And lots of love to you all. I hope you enjoy the show tonight, and we'll see you more next week. Okay.